story that I pulled from GameRant.com, written by Barrage B, says PlayStation Plus extra player count sees a big decline for July of 2024. Now, I again, kind of like Windows Central, they have like a like a synopsis, if you will, a bullet point highlights, which I want to get into because the title really doesn't depict how bad it is over on the blue team. According to the story that I have in front of me, it was posted yesterday, goes on to say player numbers for PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium games dropped by over 50% for July of 2024, making it the lowest performing month of the year. Goes on to say that the July 24 lineup included well-regarded titles like Remnant 2 and a Final Fantasy Crisis Core, but player interest has still declined. Despite the weaker Essentials section, the more expensive tiers failed to drive player interest in July of 2024. So it will be interesting to see if August's lineup is stronger to get more eyes on the higher tiers of the service. Now, look, I think what you're seeing here, and this is my opinion, whether you agree or you don't, this isn't console war rhetoric. This is me having a real worldly opinion about what's going on financially for a lot of folks in this gaming community. PlayStation Plus Premium sucks. That's it. It's $160 a year. I did it last year. I don't even know why. I am going to tell you this. They charged my card. I didn't even realize that I had it up for the automatic resubscription. I was like, yeah, I'm not doing this again. The cloud saves, whatever. I don't play it on enough to give it to care. And they charged my card. And I thought about calling customer service to try and get my money back. And I realized, well, good luck with that, Charlie Brown, because they're no way going to give me my $160 back. So I was like, you know what? I have gone in. It is not going to re-up itself at the end of the year. I'm just not doing it. Why does it suck? Well, I don't play exclusively on PlayStation. I play exclusively on Xbox, but I have a PS5 for single-player games like Spider-Man, like God of War, like Uncharted, if there's ever going to be a new one, or whatever else they're going to release in under the banner of PlayStation Studios. That's why I have a PS5. What they put in there for the value that they're asking for is egregious. It absolutely is. And if I'm a PlayStation 5 only owner, that's just not good enough, especially when you look at Green Team and what's going on with Xbox Game Pass. Just look at this month alone. It is so lopsided for the games that we got in Xbox Game Pass that it's almost laughable, Louis. So when I hear that they have a drop-off of 50% of the premium tiers, which is tier 2, tier 3, not the lowest tier, right? The lowest tier, which is $80 a year, gets you at the bare minimum a couple of games and the ability for cloud saves. You're literally paying for. I actually saw people responding to this story and said, "Yeah, listen, the only reason why I spend the $80 is for cloud saves, which, by the way, Xbox gives you for free." And no one's have ever said anything or complained about that. Louis, let's get into this because I think that there is a story here, and I think it is telling that a drop-off of over 50% for the month of July is going to continue to decline because they're not putting Gran Turismo 7 in the higher tiers. They're not putting MLB The Show in the higher tiers, but they should. Let's get into it.
Hey, Mr. BoomStick, listen. I talked about it this morning. I went a little bit in depth about it because I've been talking about for like the past couple of months about how Sony's structure is getting worse and worse and worse. And I don't see them evolving because the thing is, everybody goes out there and attacks Xbox, but Xbox right now is the only one in all of these consoles that is actually evolving, trying to get you to play anywhere, everywhere. I mean, like I mentioned, earlier about the Xbox mobile store coming about, Xbox is evolving. I mean, now we have it on Amazon Fire Stick and everything, but what is Sony giving to its users? What is Sony doing? Okay, they're giving movies, they're giving anime. Okay, is that good for you? I mean, you're happy about it. I mean, I wouldn't be happy just for that because I'm talking about this is a subscription to a game, right? To game service, right? So what do I want them to give me? I want them to give me games. I want them to actually drop something, give us something for us to enjoy. I mean, for $160 when they did that price hike, which is I find it funny. How come every time they drop like a news or something about something that goes on around with Xbox has got like a big hype. It happened the other day with Game Pass getting a little, you know, boost. I don't know what they did the other day. The price increase with Game Pass, right? And they added something there, and they did the same thing, with when Starfield came out. That's when they got actually the price hike. So basically, they went for a big hype in order to talk about this, right? But it's amazing that with this price hike, I don't see any fans, not even media, going out there and talking about it, which is actually something they should do. Instead of like me, like I say, I keep talking about it in the morning and keep on saying what should they do? I mean, what Sony can do to make that service available and a better option, for people to actually enjoy. I said this morning, hey, why don't you add at least one first party title, which for now we know they don't got nothing. We gotta wait a while. But at least add one, first party title, and you can add like two third party titles, they can drop in, and then like add a couple of indies, and probably people would say, okay, for this file is kind of good because besides that, we got movies, we got anime, which is pretty cool. But they don't do nothing for the fan base because why? Their fan base, all they do is just sit down and say, okay, Sony, do whatever you want. I don't care. I'll defend you till the end because that's all they do is defend. And the thing is, I don't get it, is that by they defending Sony the way they do is why Sony is going down spiral like crazy. Because if they would have gone out there, complain, fights to make things better, then Sony might go out there and compete. Because here's the thing, though, and they don't understand. While Xbox is evolving, Sony is staying back, and that's not a good look on Sony. It's just not a good look at all. I mean, like I said, make that service better for people who can say, okay, let me subscribe, let me enjoy. And ever since, example, right? They had a great game out there, great game that could have actually been a big competitor to Call of Duty, and that was Helldivers 2. By them doing the damn PSN account thing, by them doing that, I mean, look what happened. It's 90% down. It's not because of the lack of content. Don't come with that shit to me because I don't believe that. Because usually some games that even though they got lack of content, sometimes they stay up. Like, for example, Destiny 2, when it doesn't have content, it still has 40,000 players paying it. That's the lowest peak. So Helldivers, the way it dropped down in just, 6 months is because of what? Because they blocked a lot of countries. I mean, I'm one of those countries that are blocked. And so when that happened, we all saw the Steam guys go out there and try to fight this, yet the fans, all they did was defend. And look what happened. Keep defending. You guys just lost 90% of the players. I mean, what do you think is going to happen to the company at the end? They're going to start losing money. And with this PS Plus, the way it's working on it, right? I mean, shit, I want that service to be better because I want Sony to come out and compete. Because if it competes, then Xbox has to compete back and it gets better for us. And that's the thing they don't see. They don't see that. Oh, they say, oh, they got great games. But question, what are their great games? What? I mean, we saw an ABK deal that even Jim Ryan came out and said, well, our great games are funded by Call of Duty. What are you telling me by that right there? You're telling me that these great games don't actually sell like Call of Duty do? I mean, if there was so that word great, beautiful games, because I'm not saying they're bad, right? I'm just saying the way you guys word it out, it's like you guys have the best library out there, but yet they don't sell. It needs money from another game in order for them to make them. Why is that? I mean, that tells a lot. So, like I said, try to make that damn service better. Drop in one first-party title if you guys want every single year or something, two third-party titles in there, whichever, a couple indies, and people might say, hey, man, this is actually looks good. And I'm talking about day one, not like dropping like 6 months later, 8 months later. No, drop in day one. Get people hyped about your service and say, well, at least PlayStation's giving me one first party, two third parties, and a couple indies. I will be happy about it. Because when you sit down and do the math, you're like, well, I'm actually saving money because these games cost $70. So that's the thing, though, Sony. What are you going to do to please your fan base, to come back, pay for that service? And to be honest, though, I'm not amazed it dropped because with Call of Duty just dropping in there, which I heard somewhere, I don't know who said it because I don't mention names. I'm a guy that just does not mention games, but somebody said And Modern Warfare 3 did not do nothing because it dropped on Game Pass. It just didn't do nothing. Yes, it did. We're
It's
seeing
actually
it
number 3
right
most played
now.
game. Yeah.
We're actually
Yeah.
seeing right now what it did when they dropped into Game Pass. And we're seeing now what happened in Sony subscription service. We're seeing it right now. So,
but there are not many to really talk about. And seeing that there's only three tiers. 2 of the 3 tiers saw a 50% drop off. That's a lot of people no longer paying for the service. Let's get your hot take on it.
I mean, I'm actually surprised that this is a big news story, and the media aren't really covering the fact that, cloud saves are locked behind a paywall on that platform. Like, that is shocking that happens and nobody talks about it. But they simply get it. Yeah.
What's shocking is these guys don't even talk about how they're still blocking 180 countries from people to buying games. They still not talking, and they should. This is 4 months ago. They said they're going to fix it, and it's still not fixed. I mean, there's people who just cannot buy games, and they just don't care. And I just said, okay, don't care. You're going to lose money, and that's what they're doing, losing money.
Yeah, I mean, Sony tends to get away with a lot, but I think the big drop off is kind of expected, because if you think about like how people use these, subscription apps, people let's be honest, most people subscribe to Game Pass not because of the huge library, because of day one games. Like, day one games is such a huge incentive because, like, new AAA releases are costing £70 in the UK, right? That's like $89, right? So, like, people are just put off from, like, buying a lot of games these days because, like, the price of everything's gone up, but people aren't getting paid more. So people look at these subscription services and think, am I getting my money's worth? And I think for the PlayStation Plus, people aren't. Day one games is a huge incentive. Sony there's this weird misconception that, doing day one games ruins companies and all this stuff. But people only control Game Pass for day one games, yet Ubisoft Plus has day one games. Nobody bats an eye. EA Play Premium on PC does day one games. Nobody bats an eye. So, like, the whole day one games thing, and like companies can't afford to do it. Yeah, they can. Like, Sony relies on these huge games that sell maybe 2 months of the year, and they sell maybe 10 million copies. But the rest of the year, Sony doesn't have these games that sell consistently throughout the year. They don't have these games that have microtransactions that generate revenue every single month. That's why they're trying things like Concord. And when it comes to PlayStation Plus, people aren't really given a big incentive to play online. So it's like you're not getting day one games, and Sony isn't providing a decent multiplayer offering for people to subscribe for the multiplayer component. So the drop off doesn't really surprise me. I think Sony has to really get with the times and start doing day one games, because like you shouldn't be paying for these. Like, it's a premium subscription service, and they don't offer a premium service, and that's very telling. Day one games for Xbox has been huge, and in the modern climate where people can't afford like full price games constantly, and look at it like this. I look at the amount of games Xbox is putting out this year. If people were to pay for all those full price, that's hundreds of pounds. So people can't afford that, and the drop off. I mean, it's something Sony's going to have to fix. They're going to have to look at maybe doing day and date, because it's ridiculous. Astro's Playroom looks fantastic. It looks like it's going to be a great 3D platformer. That should be a day one game. People will subscribe to the service just to play that game. And then if they continue to add day one games throughout the year, because day one games do happen in PlayStation Plus, but it's not often. And it has to be more often than it is, because in this modern climate, like, these subscription services are basically the future for a lot of people. These companies, subscription services going forward, is the future. So, like, I know Sony is stuck in like 2002 where they want to charge full price for their games, and that be the only model. But every other form of media has changed over the years. Movies and TV, subscription services now, basically. Music, subscription services, or you can listen for free with ads. It's happened across every single form of media, but now that gaming has moved into a subscription model as an option, some people are afraid of the future. Some people don't like it. and it being an option should be a thing for Sony. On Xbox, you can still buy your games day one. Like hell, when Age of Empires 4 came to Xbox, in RTS, that was number one on the Xbox store in the UK, even though it was in Game Pass. A very niche RTS game. So, like, to say that people don't buy games because the day one, I think that's Sony's biggest worry. They think that not enough people are going to subscribe every month to play these day one games, and not enough people will continue to buy these games. So it's something they're going to have to test out. But I think maybe Sony is just too afraid to do it because it is a big business move. I think it'll work in Sony's favor if and when they move to day one games, and they'll see more people subscribe to the service. But until then, people are seeing diminishing returns because there's not really any reason to subscribe at the minute.
Infinite Number, let's get your hot take on this, because a 50% decline across 2 out of the 3 tiers is something to be concerned about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the guys already pretty much covered it pretty well, but I think what it is it's diminished returns, as Jamie pointed out, because I think at the end of the day, our Hoove brothers are kind of learned. There's not much to gain from this. I mean, we learned it a long time ago. I saw some people saying, hey, I canceled 2 years ago. The only single reason I had it at all was, one, it was gifted to me and I forgot to cancel, so I was charged again. And this was during the Hell Divers 2, when I was really into that heavily. So that was really it. I had no other reason to use it, not even for cloud saves, which is ridiculous that they're even, putting that in there when you look at the Xbox option. Stuff like that is just, it comes off as a waste. And then they don't really put games in there that I think would garner those types of subscriptions. You look at Xbox and you compare it, and you have to, as a consumer, especially us, as we own all of these different platforms. You look at Xbox's offering as an Xbox subscriber, Game Pass subscriber, and then you look at Sony's like, why would I pay for that? So I think it's just a value thing. And I think I think the economy has been tight enough where people are starting to weigh their options, and and from all types of subs. And I think PS Extra and Plus or whatever premium is just coming up short. 50% drop off is pretty drastic, and I'm surprised it was that much, but it's understandable. I would say this: I think that our Hoove brothers are reevaluating what the situation is and what they've been spending. Content, like people mentioned, putting the games in there 6 months after, that would be smart. But then, of course, gamers would just wait 6 months and then get the game inside the service, right? So I don't know if they can stick to a hard 6 months pause, if you will, on putting those games into the service. But if they can't do that, certain games should just go straight into the service. Astro's Playroom, whatever was mentioned, part 2. I'm buying that when it comes out. But yeah, that would be cool if they put that day and date into the service. Absolutely. It would bring people into it, I believe, for sure. But the problem is, I don't think that game has the longevity to keep people forever or for a long time. So the problem is, I think, many-fold for Sony. What can they offer that one, Game Pass doesn't? And what volume? Xbox Xbox Game Pass gets a ton of value you get from that, from money you save from the games they bring to it, to the diversity that they bring with it. And Sony, and just being as honest as I can, and this is no shade, they just can't compete with Xbox when it comes to that. They can't compete with Microsoft. Their pockets are too small, you know what I mean? And so they can't afford to try to curate the same list of games, or several, or at least to the same degree of the games that Xbox can. So I think it's just a losing battle for them altogether when it comes to it ultimately. But I would say, if they were to try to do something, maybe toss in some of their movies. They have Sony movies, they have the music, they got so many ways they can try to be innovative with it. Hell, they own an anime streaming services. They could throw that in there as a premium.
They own several of them.
Yeah. I know one closed, I believe. I forgot which one it was, but, or at least was condensed, I guess, and down into the other. But I can't remember off the top of my head, but yeah, there's so many ways they can go about adding some type of value without having to step outside of what they own. And I don't think they're willing to do that. I think they're stuck in that traditional mindset of things to sell versus subbing. And I think it kind of shows. It's kind of a half-hearted way that they do subbing and subscription service rather than you look at Xbox and their way they do it. It's just a different effort. And again, I think it comes down to capital, and I don't think they have it to compete in the same way that Microsoft can. So they just come up short. So again, they're just going to have to try to put something in it that will grab people. Also, too, they've hiked the price up, and that's another thing. Like, who wants to pay that much for that little? I don't. It's a waste. So, you know, if I'm a multi-platform consumer and gamer, I'm going to just subscribe to Game Pass and keep it moving. I have no reason to subscribe to PlayStation because you're not putting the quality first-party titles in there anyway. So what point is there? You know, outside of cloud saves, that's it. So, yeah.